Always remember that whatever you say can and will be used against you. So exercise your right to remain silent and avoid incriminating yourself. All of the others are terrified of him. Actually, he is the real King Sloan. He is seen on film warning others not to cross them, because if you do, you will die. They've got a couple of hundred rotorcraft chatting about guns. They basically yelled and demanded to take the matter to court. Every single indictment we bring today is greatly aided by social media. The YSL attack will be discussed in this video. It's one of the weirdest tales, and it took the state 9 years of wiretapping to collect enough proof that Young Thug's label, YSI, was essentially a gang enterprise engaged in a 7-year war in a zone. A trip to the Region 3 in Atlanta with YFN Lucci and his band of rappers. Murders and robberies became commonplace as a result. People were bribed not to testify as witnesses. Rivals cornered YSL members in a building and made them pose naked with their gang signs for photographs. Fans everywhere were taken aback by this news. They said the Young Thug was the kingpin, and that even his own members were afraid of his power. They also said that the parties he threw throughout the city were actually recruiting drives for YSL, since he had so many opponents. The biggest insult to the cops was that the whole time Young Thug was leaving hints in the music, and that DJs got choked out for playing his music. When the Young Thug was rapping about how he shot his mommy and how he got Lucci's house shot up and his mother was wounded, he was actually referring to the latter event. Now that he has made millions dealing with all the homicides, he no longer mentions me. When the Atlanta police raided a complex 2 months ago, everything came crumbling down for the young gangster who lived on Cleveland Avenue. The YSL member was wanted for questioning in connection with a heist in which weapons were used. The suspect managed to evade capture and shot a police officer 6 times before being apprehended and transported to Fulton County. Within 2 days, they called the Young Thug to get the green light to kill the Young Thug's opponent, Lucci, who was also in prison. The state was already one step ahead of the criminal, who thought he could fly drones through the jail windows to carry cell phones to his people without being detected. Instead, cell phones had been planted with other inmates who allowed the state to listen in on all of their calls. This is where things start to get interesting. Atlanta is one of the only cities in the South where clubs stayed open during COVID because music is the city's currency. It is also known as the Silicon Valley of trap music. The police precincts designate the zones within the city, and these zones contain everything from wealthy suburbs to poor slums. In this case, we need to go to the southeast to Zone 3. YFN Lucci, a rising talent from Summer Hill, and Young Thug, a rap sensation from the notorious Cleveland Avenue corridor, both call this place home. The further south you travel in Atlanta, the riskier it usually becomes. The gas stations on Young Thug's block, which range from Chevron to Exxon, are all owned by the same company. The neighborhood is dominated by a criminal gang. It is the center of YSL business. Even YSLs would be easy to find. 2 months ago, in a video, rivals brazenly patrolled these petrol outlets, and the cameraman had no idea he was filming in teenage criminals' domain. See, most fans call YSL Young Stoner Life the name of Thug's label, but that's just corporate shill-in for the true name of YSL, Young Slime Life, which over the years had evolved into a gang syndicate, connecting the blood sets across the East Coast and a sprinkling of West Coast cities. What Thug has done since being renowned is incorporate their lingo into music, which has helped to make it popular. Admirers all around the world are fond of yelling slimy or slat, respectively, to express their undying devotion to the slime way of life. To slime someone is to do them dirty, yet to have them in your inner circle means that they are someone you can trust. New York is where the phrase blood first appeared, and I took a trip up the East Coast. At this point, it's generally agreed that Atlanta crews like YSL are responsible for the trend's widespread adoption. Atlanta is the sleaziest city in the United States. 2 YSL members were accused by the state of sharing contact information in order to plan the murder of one of their own particular men 2 months ago. That's the genuine filthy. Shop where you can buy swag. Purchase Thug wears a wardrobe of all green and slime themes adorned with YSL logos and jargon. The imagery and the music have been heavily marketed over the years, resulting in millions of bucks. However, this allowed the government to monitor the gang's social media activity. Atlanta police recognized the Young Thug by his emojis and green hearts from when he was a child and sent to juvie for 4 years, after breaking his English teacher's elbow and punching him in the face. The filthy young hoodlum was well-liked by the youth of the Cleveland Avenue neighborhood. He planned his route to rap superstardom while attending Cleveland Avenue events. In 2013, Young Thug inked a $25,000 contract with Gucci Mane and was quickly released hit after the smash. The police were aware that he and his team committed robberies, carjackings, and received stolen weapons as gifts. The following year, young Thug had achieved notoriety, but his gender identity was a mystery because he frequently wore dresses while insisting that 90% of his closet was devoted to women's apparel. But he had the support of big-time bloods like Birdman, who took him under their wing. When the game attempted to start a fight with the Thug, it was clear he meant business. They represented the wealthy gang's public persona and were a formidable force. In 2015, however, the relationship between Rich Homie and Young Thug had abruptly broken down, with the video of Quan calling Thug gay at a concert going viral. According to the press, this was the main factor in their demise. However, there is a lot more to the story than meets the eye. You're looking at footage shot on Birdman's personal jet. Rich Homie Quan, Soulja Boy, and Young Thug were all together, and they seemed like they were having a good time. Donovan Thomas, pictured here in the background, was Rich Homie Quan's manager, who was also the head of the Inglewood Bloods, a gang based in the areas north of Young Thug's Cleveland Avenue hood. Thomas Donovan was better known as a nut in Southeast Atlanta. Furthermore, on the surface, Young Thugs and Nuts were good friends and worked together on a project. But in only 3 months, everything changed. In the early hours of January 1, 2015, you could find a nut waiting outside a barber shop in Atlanta's Castle Hill neighborhood. From the east came an infinite silver void. The automobile pulled up in front of the barber shop, lowered its windows, and began firing. Nut was murdered and a 14-year-old boy was injured. State officials were able to link the Infinity Satan's rental history to Young Thug, whose alias is used for government business, and the 5 YSL members who were in the vehicle 3 months earlier. Dub was on a jail call with the head of the Atlanta base, sex money murder, blood plot 2 weeks after the crime, explaining that certain casualties were unavoidable. There were whispers that Nut had become a government informant. YSL is shaking up the blood order and causing havoc. We had to get rid of him quickly. After 16 days, Blood released an Instagram video in which he claimed that liars must eventually disclose the truth in court. I think it's time, and YSL took care of you by killing you. Atlantis would see the shooting of Lil Wayne's tour bus 3 months later. After Birdman overheard the YSL associate who was arrested for the shooting admit to him that he was responsible for everything during a wiretapped phone call. The YSL henchman was detained. He could, and he should come to receive his cash. The government could see that YSL was making use of its authority, and back in Zone 3, where Nut was killed, the music stoked the flames of violence. As a result of Young Thug's prominence in the music industry, YSL was at an advantage, but the Nut was helping to guide the career of a promising young rapper named YFN Lucci from Summerhill, a neighborhood just north of Young Thug's. And Lucci would launch a full-scale assault against the Thug with disastrous results for the latter, by capturing a large number of YSL members in the same year and making them perform a strip search, while claiming they had been struck as a gang. Lucci was also producing high-quality music, garnering support from nearly all of Atlanta. He then took to the internet in an attempt to provoke Young Thug. After publicly claiming to have slept with Doug's fiancée, singing about threesomes with her, and wishing one of Doug's young daughters a happy birthday, the retaliation was immediate and vicious. Lucci's mother was injured in a shooting at his home a few weeks after the incident. In the meantime, the Young Thug was bringing in more fans and helping his YSL buddies like Gunna break into the business. Back in Southeast Atlanta, YSL was robbing firearms and cars to arm Young Thugs and Gunnas who were acting as if a war were breaking out, even getting pulled over for speeding in a different county, while accompanied by a security detail full of YSL members, armed to the teeth with AK-47s. But the Young Thug was able to bond out, avoid prosecution, and release a blockbuster album with Juice WRLD all in the same year. In it, the Thug boasts, "I shot his mommy," referring to his wife and Lucci's mother. As of right now, he never once makes reference to me. However, the PD was taking a close listen to the music. A few months later, things heated up even further when a Thug allegedly discovered Lucci's car at the prestigious Lenox Mall and posted a picture of it online, claiming that he would have killed Lucci if not for what he had done for his own family. But in an interview a few months later, Thug stated it was all in good fun, and he hoped for the best for Lucci. Because YSL members sneaked around Lucci's neighborhood at night and caught them recording a music video within a fenced-in complex, Lucci was the victim of 2 different shootings within 2 weeks of each other back in Atlanta. In the night, Lucci's squad began taking potshots at him by turning fire. During this time, the YSL's younger members expanded their activities to the city's northeast, where they robbed railroad depots in search of shipping containers and posted images of lists of all the crews they were at war with on their phones. Also that year, visiting the cemetery where Nut was laid to rest and sprayed his tombstone with large green letters reading SLAT. Just a few months later, one of the most visible members of YSL had been acquitted of murder plot charges. The rapper Jack Gotti was apprehended in 2015 while en route to carry out a revenge hit, while armed with firearms and driving at high speeds. They grabbed up firearms after one of their own was shot and beaten at a bar on the Magic City Strip and led police on a high-speed chase that ended when they crashed into a guardrail. After serving 4 years in federal prison, Yagati is now free and launching a successful rap career with the help of thugs. And right before Halloween, they came upon Lucci's automobile again at Lenox Mall, where Gotti posed atop it while flipping the middle finger. Lucci found out and Gotti combined the two covers into one. The people they were firing at had spread out for a cover, ducking and firing back. Someone from his own group pulled him out of the car and drove off, leaving him to die on the sidewalk. Adams was shot and killed in an exchange of gunfire, and his body was later dropped from a nearby Maybach. The district attorney, who had been elected in January of that year, and had been pledging to go after any rappers with mob ties, indicted Lucci and his entire gang on 112 counts of RICO, following the botched drive-by. Indeed, she was engaging in that same activity. Police in Atlanta were stung hard by the news of Lucci's arrest after intercepting private messages between YSL members discussing the state's efforts to indict them for targeted killing. Slaughtering nuts was the topic of discussion. The government was surprised to see that the YSL members they were keeping tabs on were still vlogging online about the impending battle. Time to lace up something that has APD scratching their heads in disbelief that the online shenanigans are still going strong. Just 2 months into 2022, at Fulton County Prison, a guard unlocked 2 cell doors at once, leaving Lucci alone and exposed. It's remarkable what they're prepared to share on social media, talk about, and display in pictures, given their arrogant attitude. A YSL member attacked him and began stabbing him with a makeshift shank. Lucci made it through, but the next month in Atlanta, the mother of the young thug's child was shot dead. While many saw this as retribution for the attack on Lucci, it was actually a completely coincidental event. This shows how deadly Atlanta had become. A random altercation at a bowling alley ended with someone drawing the trigger and killing a young thug's baby mama. A local journalist, George Chitty, has predicted that this is just the beginning of a citywide crackdown on violent rap crews. State-level RICO laws have been repealed left and right, with Georgia being one of only 7 states to have them. The federal government began with the arrest of Rallo, who they say was chartering planes to transport a multi-million-dollar quantity of marijuana over state boundaries. The state then arrested 25 members of the gang Rich Pablo was leading in Zone 6. Then the day nabbed YFN Lucci and Young Thug and YSL this year. And the state is prepared to produce 200 pieces of evidence against them. There will be real debates about the line between what constitutes art and what the government can use against you in your music. That's the end of today's video. Tell us what kind of video you want to see next, and we'll make it. Thanks for watching, guys.